What's going on, Dodger fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Incline Dodgers podcast presented by Tick Pick and Fansided. This is Kevin Klein speaking. Happy 4th of July Eve for those that celebrate. I know the real Independence Day is tomorrow, but we got a July 3rd show for you. There are plenty of Dodgers updates to get into and a huge milestone. Jake Reiner was in attendance for a huge monumental moment for Clayton Kershaw becoming the 20th player ever in Major League Baseball history to accumulate 3,000 career strikeouts. So, Jake, as I just said, you were there. How was the moment? And let's talk about it.
Well, Kevin, as soon as I saw that Clayton Kershaw was going to be pulled from that Rockies game, which I'm pretty sure like he was going in Coors Field, he probably could have racked up 3 more strikeouts. His pitch count was very low, very efficient outing. But I think Dave Roberts and the rest of all of us wanted Kershaw to do it at Dodger Stadium. So as soon as I figured out when Kershaw was going to pitch, they announced it. It was going to be Wednesday. I knew I had to be there. So I went and bought tickets. And guess where I bought them, Kevin? I bought them on Tick Pick. And I'm really glad that I did because honestly, as the prices were surging every single day, Tick Pick remained pretty reasonable given the fact that it was Kershaw gunning for 3,000. Also, Yoshinobu Yamamoto bobblehead night, another factor in there. But I was able to get top deck seats, which was kind of really cool. I mean, obviously, the top deck, the highest point in the stadium, overlooking the entire field, was a really unique perspective. But you could see Clayton Kershaw clear as day. The fans were pumped and they were in on every pitch. The atmosphere was electric, and you wouldn't normally feel that for a random, July 3rd game against the bad White Sox at home. And sitting all the way up there, I was thinking this is going to be a breeze for Kershaw. He's facing a really bad team, and he just came off a really great performance in Colorado where he beat another really bad team. So you thought maybe 3 strikeouts was going to happen, at least in the first couple of innings, but it really was a sweat. I mean, it was a real sweat throughout the whole thing. And through the first 3 or 4 or 5 innings, he only had 1 strikeout. And you're kind of freaking out at that point because you're looking at the pitch count. Also, he was getting knocked around pretty well by the White Sox. Austin Slater, I hadn't heard that name in years, and it was almost as if the White Sox circled this game on the calendar and decided to add him to the roster at that exact moment. I know that's not the case, but it certainly felt that way because Austin Slater going into that game had 3 home runs off Kershaw. He added to that with another bomb, hit a triple off him as well. The White Sox were hitting him. And the thing that I noticed about Kershaw was that it wasn't that he was struggling with his command. He was ahead of most hitters. Like, he was really working ahead in the count. The problem was that when he got to 2 strikes, which was on a number of these hitters, he wasn't able to put them away. He just couldn't make the right pitch, couldn't execute. But then as we get creeping towards the later innings into the 6th inning, you know that this is not a position that Dave Roberts wanted to be in because he obviously wants Kershaw to be healthy enough to be around for the stretch run, maybe the playoffs, who knows. But he knows that Kershaw is getting up there in age and he doesn't want to overwork him in a seemingly meaningless game in July. But I think that Dave didn't want to have Kershaw go through one more round of the rotation to pitch again to get those last 2 or last strikeouts. So sending him back out there for the 6th was a momentous thing. And then on the last batter, Vinny Capra, of all people, he's going to be the answer to a trivia question years down the road. Who was Kershaw's 3,000th strikeout? It was the lowly Vinny Capra, the number 9 hitter in the Chicago White Sox order, and the only pitcher, Kershaw is the only pitcher to record his 3,000th strikeout on the last pitch of his outing. It was an electric moment. I know I've been talking for a long time, but it was a really cool moment to witness live. The crowd came alive. Kershaw acknowledged them, his family there. He's got like 28 kids. I swear to God, every time they cut to Kershaw's family, I'm like, oh, there's a new kid. So his family was there to get to see it. That was awesome. I'm definitely glad that I bought these tickets on Tick Pick and decided to go.
Yeah, I mean, from watching it at home, you could hear how loud the crowd was. So I imagine people like you and No Name, who was also at the stadium, it felt like it was a playoff atmosphere. And I think that kind of correlated to how Kershaw might have been performing because it seemed like, especially in those first 2 to 3 innings, he was definitely fighting the nerves. Everyone knew what the moment was, including Kershaw. And like you were talking about, when he would get to 2 strikes, it just didn't seem like that third strike pitch he was trying to aim for was fooling these White Sox hitters. Clearly, their playoffs, if you're the Chicago White Sox this season, was to not be that batter, to be 3,000th career strikeout for Kershaw, because you don't want that tape for a lifetime being on the other end. So, unfortunately, like you said, Vinny Capra is the casualty, caught looking. I thought Steven Nelson did a pretty good job with his call. I thought the White Sox broadcast did a phenomenal job too with their call. And I loved that the game was essentially on pause for 3 to 5 minutes, whatever it was. And everyone gave Kershaw his moment. They did the tributes from his family and some other Dodgers and all that in the dugout. You saw Ohtani hugging Kershaw. So really cool moment. Good for Kershaw. We all knew coming into this season that was one of 2 big goals that Clayton Kershaw was trying to accomplish. So goal number 1, getting the 3,000th career strikeout. Check that box off. Now the other big goal is helping the Dodgers win another World Series.
Absolutely. It was really it was an electric environment in the stadium the entire time, because you're kind of waiting on pins and needles the whole time. And what made it so dramatic was the fact that he spread these 3 strikeouts over the 6 innings. I mean, you think Kershaw against the bad team, it was going to be like super easy and it was going to be a breeze, and we were able to, kind of celebrate him the rest of his outing and kind of, relax. But it was very tense every time he came back out onto the mound, and you're thinking, just get 1 strikeout here. And we were saying, when he got to 2 strikeouts, it was like, okay, Dave's going to send him back out there. I was watching the dugout too, just to see what Kershaw was doing. I was also keeping my eye on the bullpen. I think Alex Vesia was doing wind sprints because he kept going to the bullpen mound, coming back. There was guys stretching. It was very tense. Kershaw, I don't know why, but he was going in and out of the dugout, maybe into the tunnel or the clubhouse. I don't know, but he kept disappearing, and that kind of made me nervous. Like, is he going to come back? Is he going to pitch? But of course he was going to do that. I mean, Dave was going to let him go as long as he possibly could. And for Kershaw to get up to 100 pitches like that, another silver lining is the fact that he gave the Dodgers some length. I mean, he got through 6 innings. So that was kind of huge for this bullpen the rest of the series and whatnot. Unfortunately, though, and I know we're going to get to it, but in that same inning, I mean, we lost Max Muncy. So it was a weird kind of juxtaposition to see Max Muncy get taken out by Michael A. Taylor. Another scrub does it to Muncy. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of times like a no-name player takes out Max Muncy. Remember Jace Peterson from a few years ago. So that was very concerning. And also I was kind of worried too, because there was a long break in between the injury and when Kershaw went back out to pitch. And I was worried that maybe Dave was going to pull him. And anyway, it was very tense. So the fact that he was able to do it on the last pitch, I mean, you couldn't write anything more dramatic than that.
Yep. 100th pitch. But he got the job done. Good for them. Good for the Dodgers. Comeback win. We'll talk about that. Walk off. Also electric moment right there for Freddie Freeman. But yeah, I mean, it was a weird inning because Max Muncy did get injured in the same inning where Clayton Kershaw will eventually get his 3,000th career strikeout. So it was like highs and lows in terms of emotions. But back to Kershaw real quick. I mean, I hope he gets 100% of the votes when it comes down to Hall of Fame voting. Like, I can't think of a more unanimous candidate in our lifetimes than Clayton Kershaw. I mean, what more does this guy really need to add to his resume to be viewed as a 100% first-time ballot Hall of Famer? He's arguably the greatest pitcher of this generation. I mean, if you look at just best career ERAs since the 1950s, you've got Jacob deGrom and Clayton Kershaw 1 and 2. But the problem with Jacob deGrom is he spent a lot of his career on the injured list, while Clayton Kershaw has definitely stockpiled the innings. It has almost double of what career innings Jacob deGrom has thrown, and they're basically the same age. So you basically have to give that ERA crown to Kershaw. He's got the 3 Cy Youngs, an MVP, multiple World Series, a bunch of ERA titles, strikeout titles. So I'm going to be on the hunt for any voter that doesn't give Kershaw their Hall of Fame vote, and we'll rip them to shreds whenever that time comes. That could be in 6 years, 7 years, to be determined, I guess. But
yeah, he should be.
Go ahead.
He should be a unanimous decision for the Hall of Fame. But we do have some breaking news here on the Incline, Kevin. I don't know if you saw that come in, but we got some news about Max Muncy. So the Dodgers, as we know, they recalled Esteury Ruiz, and they placed Max Muncy on the injured list with a left knee bone bruise. Left knee bone bruise.
I mean, at first thought, that's definitely a much better scenario than the initial injuries that we had thought potentially were going to happen to Muncy. So it sounds like there's no tear. So that's great news, because I was worried it was going to be an MCL tear or an ACL tear, but a bone bruise, like a contusion, essentially. I mean, it seems like the timeline for a healing for a bone bruise, 2 to 6 weeks. I'm guessing because it's a knee, it'll be more on the 6-week side. But let me double check one other thing.
I'll just say that being in the stadium last night, upon first look, it looked really bad. I mean, and then you look at the replay, and his knee, he landed awkward, or the contact with Taylor's helmet to his knee, it looked like a very awkward bend. And I mean, if it's just a bruise, that's a miracle. That is a miracle among miracles, because losing Max Muncy with how he's turned his season around is a huge loss to this team. And you start to think about all the other options that are out there potentially for a third baseman at the deadline. And I would like to get into that with you at some point, because as you know, with this Dodgers organization, when they come out with a diagnosis or they tell you the severity of an injury, it tends to always get worse over time.
Yeah. No, definitely. Appreciate people tuning in. Hit that like button. We'll get to some questions as well if you have questions for the show. Upon doing some more digging in terms of kind of the expectations, like Cedar Sinai, for example, says bone bruises slow healers, can take 1 to 2 months. I'm seeing another doctor saying most bone bruises are 4 to 8 weeks. General Google AI overview. A bone bruise in the knee typically takes several weeks to several months to heal. So it seems like one of those types of injuries where it's almost like an oblique injury, where you just don't know what the exact timeline is for a guy like Max Muncy to come back. Like, for example, last year, oblique injuries are all across the stratosphere as well in terms of time horizon. Some guys come back in 15 days. Other players like Max Muncy, it took several months for him to come back. And again, we don't know the severity of a bone bruise. It seems kind of vague in terms of like how bad the bruise actually is. But I think we can kind of prep ourselves that at the very minimum, Max Muncy will probably be out close to a month, and that will be around the trade deadline. So that kind of leads us to the next discussion of, so what do the Dodgers do with Max Muncy? Do they kind of roll the dice, and do they just hope he comes back in time for the postseason, and in the meantime, ride it out with a Miguel Rojas, Kike Hernandez, and maybe some Tommy Edman at third base? Or are they going to be aggressive here and make a trade? So I think we still need to have a little bit more information in terms of the expected timeline, but I don't know if you had any general thoughts or kind of predictions of what the Dodgers.
Yeah, I have some thoughts about that. It makes me very nervous, the idea of having to choose between Kike Hernandez and Miguel Rojas and Tommy Edman at third base come October. Although as we know, Kike is a very, very potent postseason player. So is it that bad? I don't know. You're banking on Kike having that magic again in the postseason. He's certainly not showing it at the plate in the regular season. So that would be the only kind of like, I guess, light at the end of the tunnel if they feel that Max Muncy is not going to be ready and they don't want to make a move for a third baseman. But the way I see it is I would rather have Kike Hernandez as an asset to be able to plug in wherever else and still have a defined third baseman. The Dodgers should have one of those, an everyday third baseman. It's an important position. And I think that there are some players out there that could make sense that you wouldn't necessarily be upset if they end up benching them or cutting them, depending on how bad the injury is with Max Muncy. But if they feel that Muncy's going to come back, I've looked around the league to see what some potential third base options out there, and none of them really are better than Max Muncy. I mean, you can make an argument for Nolan Arenado, but he's not having a good season. Max Muncy's having a better season. So then what are you talking about? Are you going to look at Ryan McMahon? He's not having a good season either. You're going to look around the league. Gio Urshela, third baseman for the A's, he's not hitting well. He doesn't have any homers. And then you look at like guys like Ramon Urias of the Orioles. That guy could be interesting. He's actually having a pretty decent year. And they could probably get him since the Orioles are at the bottom of the division. And then you go, much younger with like a Michael Garcia of the Royals, but you're going to have to maybe pay up a lot more for a guy like that. He's only like 25. So there's really not a lot of great options out there. That's only if I think that they believe Muncy's not coming back. But if they think Muncy's coming back, I don't know that you necessarily need to go out and get a third baseman.
Max Muncy was easily the Dodgers' best player in the month of June. I don't even think it was relatively close. He was on fire, so it's just horrible timing in terms of this injury for him because he was playing exceptional ball. He was an all-star finalist. I know he lost out to Manny Machado, but there was maybe a slight possibility he was going to make the all-star team as a reserve if there was an opening for him, just because of how good of a season Max Muncy is now having. In the month of June, he hit .333, had a .459 on base percentage, 1,100 OPS, 7 home runs, 24 RBIs, was amounting a bunch of walks too. Had that 1 week where he had 2 grand slams in a week span against the Nationals and the Rockies, and he'd been kind of on fire with runners in scoring position as well. And especially to me, I feel like the defense got cleaned up a lot. Very few errors, especially over this past month. So this sucks for Max Muncy. I don't think there really are any trade candidates out there that would surpass Max Muncy. But there are some guys out there that could kind of help be a stopgap and fill the production in the meantime in case Muncy were to be available near the postseason. But yeah, I agree with most of those names you threw out there. I'll talk about more of that in just a second, but I wanted to talk about how the Dodgers have found their solution in the meantime, apparently. CJ Alexander. It's always embarrassing when I have to admit I've never heard of these players. So they claimed CJ Alexander off the DFA scrap heap from the New York Yankees, and he's got a very impressive major league career. He's a 160 lifetime hitter in 25 at-bats with a .320 on-base percentage. This year alone, he's hitting 176. CJ Alexander, how does that acquisition make you feel, Jake? He's an infielder.
Feels great. I'd like to see, I don't know. I mean, I guess they might give him a shot. I have no idea. I mean, his stats are not very impressive at all. So I know they just called Esteury Ruiz up. And I know he's primarily an outfielder, so we'll see what he's able to provide. But I don't know. Here's the thing. I think as it stands right now, the Dodgers will be able to get by with a third baseman by committee type of thing with Rojas and Kike and maybe Edman over there, maybe Hae-Sung Kim. I don't know. Or give rushing a shot. I mean, there are a couple of a bunch of internal options that they could go to that I think could be serviceable during this time. I mean, certainly the lineup is powerful enough to score runs without Max Muncy, despite all those stats you mentioned. So I think they'll be fine to kind of weather this storm. It's just a question of whether or not Muncy's going to be healthy and enough to return. That's going to be the huge question, because if he isn't, then I think they do need to go out and get someone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the lineup they rolled out today. It's kind of disgusting in my opinion, because you got an injury to Max Muncy. You would think naturally this is now your opportunity to get Hae-Sung Kim in the Dodgers lineup. And I'm looking at the lineup and I don't see Hae-Sung Kim. Every game I feel like I watch with Kim involved, he finds a way to get on base. Sometimes he grounds out and, you know, it's a fielder's choice, but his legs are so quick, he still gets on base. And then he makes up for it and he gets a stolen base. And so even though it's an 0-4, he automatically manufactures himself into run situations sometimes because he has that leg ability and can steal bases. Defensively in the infield, he's a wizard as well. I don't think he has the game to correlate to third base, but I think the Dodgers could tough it out and put Edman over there at third base, and then you have an infield of Edman at third, Mookie at shortstop, and Kim at second base. I think that's perfectly fine. You lose a lot of power, obviously, with Max Muncy going down, but I'm sick of it. The Dodgers need to make Kim an everyday player in their lineup until he gives them a reason not to. This is a unique Swiss Army knife weapon that they have, and they're not getting the most out of it. And honestly, I'm getting frustrated.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're picking up the torch from me, because I've been banging my fist on the table about Hae-Sung Kim long before we've been clamoring him for him to play more. I mean, I saw what I needed to see when he first came up and started hitting. And like you mentioned, the Swiss Army knife capabilities, this guy has tools on this roster that nobody else really possesses. Last night, he got a massive walk, a huge clutch walk in the ninth inning to allow Shohei Ohtani to come up. He is, without putting Tommy Edman ninth, because I think Tommy Edman's a pretty good 9-hole hitter, Kim is the best 9-hole hitter on this team. I can't tell you how many times he turns the lineup over to give Shohei an opportunity. And like you said, if he can get on base, he can steal second. Now he's in scoring position for Ohtani. And if they walk Ohtani, then you got Betts behind him. So it just changes the dynamic of an inning, even if there are 2 outs, as opposed to Miguel Rojas, who has been hitting better. I'll give him credit. But the guy is so slow that if he gets on base, which he doesn't normally do a lot of the time for Ohtani, and let's say Ohtani hits a double, he's not necessarily scoring on a double. Kim is easily scoring on a double. So I don't understand why. And Roberts has done this too, where Kim will have some success or have a huge night, and then the next day he's on the bench. And it's like, how do you expect this guy to consistently be good? And despite all that, he has actually, because every time he's out there, he makes an impact somehow. It has frustrated me this whole time that I've kind of resigned my feelings for the past few weeks, because I've just gotten to the point of acceptance that he's just not going to be in there every day, even though he's earned it.
It's crazy, but yeah, I mean, guy has a .415 on base percentage, but even though they said the other week they were going to get him more at bats, I'm not really seeing it. I don't think he recorded a single start at Coors Field. Who knows what he could have done there? I know they sweep the Rockies because it's the Rockies, but let a guy like Kim get some at-bats, boost his confidence even more. We'll get to some questions now in a second. I see some in the chat, so I want to give you guys some love. Drop your questions, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Stuart Baroa was DFA'd by the Dodgers, so for forever now he'll be Stuart Who, because he never actually played for the Dodgers, but was on the 40-man. You mentioned Esteuris Ruiz getting called up. He'll wear number 27 for the Dodgers. Do you think he has a role for this team now that he's been called up to the show?
Yeah, I mean, he's been hitting like 295 in AAA, so I mean, he's had a pretty good season. It's another dynamic player with a lot of speed. I don't think he has that much power, so I don't know what kind of impact he's going to have. But since the Dodgers signed him and the A's kind of cast him off, I've been excited to see what he's capable of doing. And as you know, the Dodgers have a pretty good track record when the A's get rid of someone. they pick up someone from the A's and then they become someone. And, Max Muncy, that we just talked about, is a prime example of that. The Dodgers also, to go back a few years, they were able to pluck Andre Ethier from the Athletics for basically nothing. Milton Bradley and Antonio Perez. So anytime the Dodgers pick up someone from the A's you've never really heard of, I think it's a good sign.
Except for Sheldon Noisy.
Yeah, if he could have learned how to stretch, maybe.
We don't need to talk about Sheldon ever again.
Yeah, well, you brought him up.
I know. I had to, because it's just so funny. So with Ruiz, he led the majors in stolen bases a couple seasons ago in 2023. He swiped 67 bags. So the speed potential is most certainly there. But I'm going to be quite honest with how I think this is going to go. I think he's going to get the Hunter Fiducia treatment. I think he's going to mostly ride the bench. I just don't really see how the Dodgers are going to fit him into their lineup if they're going to continue to roll out Conforto. You've got Teoscar Hernandez and you've got Andy Pages. So is there really room for Ruiz, or is he going to be more of a pinch runner type of occasional pinch hitter? I honestly kind of have my doubts that we're going to see much of Ruiz, and I wouldn't be surprised if they send him down in a day or two when they find their replacement infielder for Max Muncy, who is officially on the injured list.
Yeah, I think that's a fair guess as to how his time will go. I see him as a late inning defensive replacement, or a pinch runner, that sort of thing. He'll get an at bat once in a while, but like you said, the outfield is pretty set right now. And even though Michael Conforto has looked a little bit better, he still is bad. But one hell of a catch last night he made. He actually, kind of saved the game for the Dodgers in retrospect. In that first inning. Kershaw was not looking great. He'd already given up a run. And then I forget who on the White Sox hit this deep fly ball to left field, but Conforto made a miracle catch up against the wall. And then Conforto got a base hit in the ninth last night to kind of, I forget if he was leading off or batting second in that inning, but kept the rally going nonetheless. I'd like to, I don't know what else you have for us right now, Kevin, but at some point I'd like to talk about Teoscar Hernandez in the outfield. I know you probably have already touched on that in the last episode, but
not really.
That's a conversation worth having right now, because it is a kind of a disaster defensively for him out there. But we can save that after we're done with what we have here.
Circle back on that in a few minutes. Call me _Astro. Didn't Rendon miss a season with a bone bruise? Well, number one, Anthony Rendon hates baseball, so I think anytime he has the reason and excuse not to play, he's going to milk that sucker, and I'm pretty sure it ended up being a fracture after they did some more diagnosis on that injury. So hopefully that's not the case for Max Muncy.
That's got to be one of the worst contracts ever.
Yes. Dennis Gonzalez for Jake. Do we take a look at Alec Bohm at third base?
So I looked this up, and obviously the Phillies are in first place. So, typically, get to steal their third base, a third baseman of a team that is in first place. But I don't know. There's been some mixed feelings, I think, from Phillies fans when it comes to Alec Bohm. He's having a pretty decent season. He's hitting 283 with 7 home runs and 38 RBIs. And from what I can gather, is a pretty good defensive third baseman. But as someone, I have a good friend of mine who's a rabid Phillies fan, and he is always complaining in group chats that I'm in with him about how they want to get rid of Alec Bohm. They can't stand him. He's a double play machine. Please, somebody take this guy off our team. So there's a lot of negative feelings, I feel like, from Phillies fans about Alec Bohm and his, ability to come through when you need him. But I mean, a 283 average this day and age. He's only 28 years old. A good third baseman. I think it's worth a look. Sure. I think it is worth a look at to see what the market would be like for a guy like that, especially coming from a team like the Phillies, I don't know if they have someone else that could, step up and be the third baseman of that team.
Yeah, that's the big other half of this question is, well, then who do the Phillies play at third base? And I don't think the Dodgers have that player to supply for them. So I don't know if they would match up. So this is a good question from BC. But I think this is where we could first talk about Teoscar in right field, and then we can bag on Mookie Betts.
Okay, so Teoscar Hernandez, as we know, is one of the staples of this lineup, and he had an incredible first year with the Dodgers last year. Ended up, it was an all-star, won the home run derby contest, was massive in the postseason. Just an all-around great guy to have, and so happy that they re-signed him. The problem is that he is a bad outfielder. And I think it's worth noting that his arm is good. He has a pretty good arm. But there have been too many plays this year in the outfield that have had, 90% catch probability and higher, where he's just not getting there. And it either looks like he's A, not getting a good jump, or B, kind of dogging it to the, I don't want to call him out for dogging anything or being lazy, for lack of a better word, but it does look like that. It doesn't look like he's really getting to the spot he needs to get to. And that concerns me, because that obviously it extends innings. It, puts more pressure on your pitcher, more pitch count on your pitcher, and also puts your team in a position to lose. And there have been so many fly balls this year where I'm like, where is he? Why is he not getting to the spot? Or there's a fly ball in between like a trio of Dodgers where it's like Edman, Freeman, and it would clearly be the right fielder's ball to catch it. And he just lets it drop in front of him. I don't know what's going on with him out there, but it is a concern defensively speaking, because he's a liability, Kevin.
It's funny because not to toot my own horn, but there were so many concerns this preseason heading into the regular season during spring training, how everyone's like, oh, Andy Pages is going to be a liability out there in center field. He's going to be the reason our outfield is in shambles. And I said, no, you need to be more concerned about the corner outfielders. I'm more concerned about Michael Conforto in left field, and I'm really concerned about Teoscar Hernandez in right field. And unfortunately, it just does not look like right field is a position that Teoscar Hernandez can handle at an efficient rate. And the data speaks for itself. Statistically, he is the worst outfielder in the game when it comes to range in outs above average per Baseball Savant. He's got a -8. His fielding run value is a -7. He's in the 2 percentile out of 100 with that metric. And you already pointed out how it seems like there's times where he's just gingerly jogging out there, or he's not hustling, or there's a ball being hit in his direction, and for some reason he's not being aggressive and going after it and hoping that the second baseman or shortstop will make that play, but that the ball is clearly in his wheelhouse, and then it drops down for a blooper base hit, or sometimes rolls past him for a double. And it's been cleaned up in the last couple series, but let's be real, they've been facing the White Sox and the Kansas City Royals. There were some bigger series prior to that where I was losing my mind, where there were so many balls hitting the direction of Teoscar Hernandez, and he wasn't getting a good read on them at all. And I know that there's some people out there that believe that left field is harder than right field. For those that believe that, you do not know what you're talking about. Right field is kind of becoming the premier position where you want to have an elite athlete and a good defensive outfielder in right field, because one, a lot of balls are hit that direction with the amount of left-handed bats. On top of that, you have to get a good read on the ball, because when a right-handed bat is in the batter's box and they hit it oppo, just the angle of it can kind of fool certain fielders. So you have to make sure you get a good jump and read on that. And at the expense of Conforto, you've got to just have Teoscar in left field, and hopefully Andy Pages can be in right field or center field, and then you find your right fielder, because I am kind of freaking out if Teoscar is our right fielder come postseason.
Oh, absolutely. And to your point about left field versus right field, there's a reason Manny Ramirez was a left fielder. I mean, you're gonna put guys out there that kind of have to play the outfield because of just the makeup of the roster, but you don't necessarily want them out there. Like Barry Bonds was a left fielder. In the later part of his career, he was, again, he was a Gold Glover out there. But you're going to put your weaker athlete and also weaker arm out in left field than in right field. And that's typically the way it goes. Now, Andy Pages, obviously, there were reasons to be concerned about him as an outfielder because we've seen him not play it well. Now he's cleaned up a lot of those mistakes and has made some spectacular plays out there. And as one of our listeners is pointing out, he did misplay a ball last night. Andy Pages did in right field, and that is just going to happen. But the problem is that it's not just Teoscar Hernandez misplaying balls. He's not misplaying them. He's just not getting to them and not taking the right route to get to those balls. So I don't know what's going on, but it seems like he's not really like gunning for it. And maybe it's an injury thing. I know he spent some time on the IL this year with an injury. So maybe he's nursing that. But outfield defense is too important to mess up. And I think with the way the Dodgers had it last year, which was kind of brilliant. I mean, they had Edman in center and they had Teoscar in left and then Mookie in right. I mean, that's why it was so great is that, you had Mookie Betts, a Gold Glover out there in right field. And now you have him at shortstop, and we're going to get to Mookie Betts in a minute, but that leaves a huge hole in right field. And they got to figure it out because honestly, it's like, you could make the argument that you could sacrifice outfield defense if you're getting production at the plate from Teoscar Hernandez, which I think you do make that excuse. But if you're not getting offensive production from Michael Conforto on a consistent basis, then there's really no reason to have him out there at the expense of your defense.
Yeah, and I was trying to remember exactly the play, but I'm looking at my timeline and some text, and that game on Saturday, June 28th against the Kansas City Royals, where we lost 9-5, Teoscar Hernandez booted a ball out there, and I'm pretty sure that was with Dustin May on the mound, and then ultimately Bobby Witt Jr. got the opportunity to hit a 2-run home run, and the Dodgers just never really recovered from that moment moving forward. So there's been a lot of plays as of late with Teoscar. I think you just need to clean it up. You can hide him in left field, and the Dodgers got away with that with him in left field last season. I don't think they can get away with hiding him in right field for this season. And so far, it's showed despite their success. I know they're in first place. They're running away with the division at this point in time. They're 55-32. The Padres are in a free fall. The Giants are in a free fall. We've got an 8.5 game lead now over San Diego, 9 games ahead of San Francisco, and 11.5 over Arizona. But I just know these things come back to bite us in the playoffs. So when it comes to Mookie Betts, because BC says, are we allowed to talk about Mookie Betts' OPS falling to 697? I got to be quite honest. I did not see Mookie Betts having an OPS in July in a Dodgers uniform at this stage in his career. He's only 32, 33, and he's got an OPS below 700. He's not even in a slump at this point. You call it a decline. He's having a declining season. What are your initial thoughts of just kind of what we've been seeing with Mookie Betts?
It is very disappointing. Although he did have a massive sacrifice fly last night to tie the game, he's just not been good enough. He is popping up most balls these days, just getting under it, infield pop up. He obviously doesn't have the speed that he had when he first became a Dodger, or even as a Red Sox. And I don't know. I mean, nobody's making the connection from the organization side of things. I don't think that they would, that because he's focused so much on shortstop, his offense has declined. But I think that's a real question and a real concern. Has he spent too much time trying to learn the shortstop position And has his offense taken a hit from it? I think it's a fair question. I don't know if that's the case, but if it is the case, if it has anything to do with his decline on offense, it makes me even more upset when we were having these discussions at the beginning of the offseason about when the news came out that he was going to switch to shortstop full time. I remember talking to you about it, Kevin, and thinking, why are we doing this? We're the Los Angeles Dodgers. We have every resource available at all times. He is a premier right fielder for this organization. And fine, if you don't want to have him in right field and you want to, get him off his feet, so to speak, and maybe it's easier on his body to play the infield, then play second base. You talk about the difference between left field and right field, which, I think it's marginal compared to the difficulties of second base versus shortstop. I mean, shortstop is the most demanding position on the infield by a mile. So I don't understand why they would put themselves in this position, but they did. And this is kind of the bed they're going to have to lay in at this point. But I would much rather have Mookie Betts be a more productive offensive threat than him being a good shortstop at this point. But again, I don't know if that is the definite reason here as to why he's not hitting.
It was a lot easier to connect the 20 to 25 pound weight loss that he suffered at the beginning of the season to maybe why he was getting off to a slow start. But that's like 3 months ago now. And his numbers have only gotten worse. He actually started off the season fairly hot with the Dodgers back in Tokyo in the early parts of the 2025 season. But in the month of June, he had his worst season maybe ever as a Los Angeles Dodger. I mean, in the month of June, he hit 240, had a WRC plus of 74, and an OPS of 633. In terms of power production, I know he did get a few home runs. I wanted to pull up exactly how many. Actually, he only had 1 home run. So he has 9 home runs on the season, and he only had 1 home run in the month of June. And it's only getting hotter outside. So that typically means the ball is going to fly farther, and he should connect for more home runs, which is historically what we got for Mookie Betts. And it's not like he still has that weight loss. He's got all the weight back. He's got all the muscle back. I know part of the blame that he wanted to throw out there, Betts saying that the weight loss early in the season has resulted in bad mechanics offensively, but I'm honestly just not buying that, because if you look at Mookie Betts' advanced metrics, like, he's doing a really good job of putting the bat on the ball. He's making good contact. He's just popping up a lot, which has been frustrating. His power has been zapped. He's not barreling up on the ball. It's just been a lot of weak pop-ups, a lot of weak ground outs. He's not swinging and chasing. He's actually shown he's had a good eye. But you mentioned the loss of speed. He's as slow as ever now. And usually you don't get speed back. You only lose speed. And he's losing all his power. And a lot of people are going to disagree, but I am fully on board. And I think this is completely attributed to him playing shortstop. I think he's putting a lot of emphasis. I think he's putting in a lot of off the field drills in, or I should say off the playing time drills in before games. And I think during spring training, he really wanted to shift all his focus to being a really good defensive shortstop. And to his credit, he has done that. But now he's got an OPS below 700. He's still hitting second in the Dodgers lineup. And if we're in October and he has an OPS below 700, do we really feel comfortable with Mookie Betts hitting second for this team? I don't know about that.
Well, let's play this game. Where would you put him in the lineup? How would you reconfigure it?
So let's just say Kim is playing like he has been. I think his son Kim needs to be batting first or second then, just because he's getting on base and he's fast. And whether you want to put him in front or behind Shohei Ohtani, or I probably would put Kim in the top 3. If he's going to continue to play like this, you keep Freeman up there, and then hopefully one of Pages or Muncy comes back and he's hot, or you've got Teoscar. There's a number of options you could put at that 3 or 4 slot.
Smith.
Or that's that. Thank you. Another perfect candidate.
And then where would you put Betts?
Probably 6 or 7.
That's tough. I mean, I get the whole idea of being a team player and wanting to do what's best for the organization and all of that, but he's one of the leaders on this team. You're gonna put him lower in the lineup. I mean, I don't know how that's gonna sit. I don't know. I mean, I agree with you that something needs to change because, outside of Freddie Freeman, walking it off last night, I always feel comfortable with him in the middle of the order, even when he's not going well, because he always has the opportunity to figure it out because he's one of the greatest hitters I've ever seen. But when you have Betts and Freeman going through a bit of a slump, that's tough. That you just can't have that. And specifically with Mookie, like that just, you just can't have it. But I just don't know that you're going to move Mookie Betts down to 5th or 6th. I don't see how they're going to do that. I think they're just going to ride it like it is.
You continue to ride it until you can no longer ride it. And that's why I think you keep him up there for now to hope that he gets his numbers up. That's why I emphasized October, because I just don't know how you can bat him second in October if he's still hitting like this. Like these games matter. You can't have Mookie Betts getting extra at bats if he's struggling at the plate. And if he has a problem with that, then he's not a team player. But I feel like Mookie's a team first type of guy, and he would accept having to be moved down in the order if his play calls for it. And Freddie Freeman, even though he has been kind of going through it, until Freddie Freeman shows me that he's just not Freddie Freeman anymore, I'm going to continue to just have him up there in the top 3 of the batting.
Oh yeah, no, you don't move him anywhere.
And he proved that last night. He had the walk-off base hit. He's an all-star yet again. So Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, and Will Smith are all starting for the Dodgers at the All-Star game. We haven't talked about that yet. But that was just an awesome comeback from the Dodgers. I mean, they were down 2 runs. Grant Taylor had a meltdown, got to Steven Wilson. The way they were able to work the count, get on base. Ohtani got a run in, Betts got a sac fly, and then Freeman walked it off. That's just some good Dodgers baseball right there.
Yeah, it was huge. And if you're the White Sox, that that is just an embarrassing meltdown, which is why, we argue all the time about why Dave Roberts decides to punt certain games. And, I mean, to me, it's like if this team is within 3 runs or 4 runs in the 8th or 9th inning, like you try and win those games, because this team easily could win those games, especially against a bad White Sox team. I think that they showed just exactly who they are in that 9th inning. It was a full team effort, pass the baton. Everything that we know and love about this offense came alive. It was great. I don't know what you do with this lineup. I think you just got to keep it the way it is, because like you mentioned earlier, this team is running away with the division at this point. The Giants have come back down to earth. The Padres are, I don't know what's going on there. The Diamondbacks are much worse than I thought they'd be. I mean, even without, even losing Corbin Burns, like I'm kind of surprised. I thought this division would be a lot tougher than it is, and it certainly started out that way. But regardless, the Dodgers are at the top of the division for a reason, and they can afford to have Mookie Betts figure it out in the 2-hole and try and, climb out of this slump.
I've got to say, one of the newest Dodgers has been really impressing me, and it's not a last name bias, but Will Klein. That guy's got some gas, throwing 100 miles per hour. He's looked pretty impressive so far in his short Dodgers tenure. I think we may have found another gem. I mean, he's got 7 strikeouts in 4 2/3 innings. Been liking a lot from Will Klein, especially with Michael Kopech going back on the injured list. So continue to run that horse. Thoughts on the All-Star selection? Was there any name that you felt surprised with, or are you just happy to see Smith, Ohtani, and Freeman getting their recognition?
I mean, I think in terms of who you could conceivably start for the Dodgers, I think those are the 3. You can make an argument for Teoscar Hernandez. You could also make an argument for Andy Pages, but they're not getting in over the guys that were selected. They just weren't. Even though those guys deserve to be all-stars anyway.
I think the Dodgers will have just maybe one more all-star, and I think it's got to be Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the National League.
Has to be.
His most recent outing was just really impressive as well. I know it was against the Chicago White Sox, but he dominated them. He went 7 innings. He had 8 strikeouts, gave up just the 1 earned run.
And they got him some run support, Kevin.
I know, finally. He got some run support. That was a crazy stat. I mean, in his last 15 starts or something, he only got 3 runs of support in the first inning. And then in that most recent outing, he got 4 runs support, which surpassed his entire season total. Good for Yamamoto. That was just a great game to kind of to remember how epic the Dodgers 2024 offseason was, because you add Yamamoto, who continues to look like an ace out there. You got to see Shohei Ohtani hit his 30th home run on the season, and even Teoscar Hernandez had an RBI base hit. So good win, good stuff. Anything else you want to talk about before we kind of get into the final things?
Was there anything else? No, we talked about Teoscar. I think that's it for now. Yeah.
All right. So a couple quick notes. I know that the Dodgers said they're kind of holding off on Ben Kasparius. I think a couple things happened. One, he came down with an illness, and so that kind of affected his most recent outing. I believe he gave up 6 runs when he was piggybacking Ohtani and struggled against the Royals. But in the month of June, just altogether, he had a really tough month. I mean, his ERA in the month of June was close to 6. Now on the season, he's got a 3.97 ERA. So yeah, it's been kind of a struggle bus for Ben Kasparius. So I just wanted to throw it out there real quick. I'm not too thrilled with the way the Dodgers have been using Kasparius as of late. I felt like he was really comfortable in that high leverage 1 to 2 innings role. You got the best out of Ben Kasparius, showing the best of his stuff. And when they stretched him out as kind of that piggyback starter, I honestly think it's kind of wearing him down.
Yeah, I mean, I think you either got to do one of 2 things. I think you got to make him either a starting pitcher and just have him start the game, or you do exactly what you were saying he was doing before, which is that high leverage 2 to 3 inning guy. I don't think he is a guy that we want being overworked. I think that guys like Justin Robleski, who we haven't talked about yet, but what a stud he's been so far this year as that in that role. I would like to see Kasparius kind of maybe dial it back a little bit, but they kind of do need him. I mean, as long as Ohtani is being stretched out the way he is, I assume he's going to go maybe 2 innings, maybe even 3 on Saturday, which, we will both be there, right, Kev? That's going to be,
I'll be there.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, come find me, hit me up. I'll be at Saturday's game.
So I think that they're going to continue to do that. And let's see if that was just like an outlier, like illness thing, or if it's a sign of something more than that. I did want to read something that I saw. David Vassay tweeted this out about Max Muncy. He said, Max Muncy said he's out for at least 6 weeks, but has the consultation to know he will play baseball again this season. And then he says that Muncy said he heard the roar of the crowd last night after Kershaw's 3,000th strikeout while undergoing x-rays. The second part of that is kind of sad. I mean, because he actually made a great play on that throw from Will Smith to tag out Michael A. Taylor before he was upended. And so for the fact that he was listening to the roar of the crowd for the 3,000th strikeout and not be on the field with Kershaw, you got to feel for that. That's tough. But the first part of that is at least encouraging. I mean, he said he's going to be out 6 weeks, but believes that he will be playing baseball again this year.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now too, since you pointed out for the part where it says for at least 6 weeks has me a little bit concerned, though, because that means it's not a guarantee that he misses just 6 weeks. It means he's going to miss at least 6 weeks. So it
A
could
month
be
and a
longer.
half. Yeah.
And that's past the trade deadline. So I think we can quickly talk about that now in a split second. But you mentioned the other guy I wanted to talk about. It's time for me to pound my fists on the table for Justin Robleski. The Dodgers need to do him a service and add this guy to the starting rotation. Every outing since that first one where he got roughed up, he's just been lights out. He's been electric, and he's doing something that is kind of unfathomable to me coming from the Dodgers bullpen. He's giving them a consistent 5 to 6 innings every time out there. In the month of June, he had an ERA in the low twos. He just looks so composed out there. He doesn't look like he's getting phased at all. Even if he allows a walk or a base runner, he doesn't let that get to himself. He gets out of the inning. He's been doing a really good job. He had 6 scoreless innings in his most recent appearance. I believe that was also against the Kansas City Royals. And he's got good strikeout stuff. He's got an interesting range with his fastball where sometimes it's 94 miles per hour. Other times it's 100 miles per hour. So I'm very excited with Robleski. I feel like we talked about him a good amount too over spring training. And then we were kind of disappointed that he got roughed up in his first outing, but he's really turned the corner and he looks like a legitimate MLB pitcher out there. I think the Dodgers need to give him that reign and incorporate him into the starting rotation. And I wouldn't trade him. I don't think I would trade him for anyone unless it's like a legit ace.
I think once Ohtani gets built up, I think they should do that. And I also think that they should add Emmett Shee into the rotation and make this like a true 6-man so that we don't have to do these bullpen games. I think the Dodgers have enough pitching at this point to where they don't need to do bullpen games. And wouldn't that be a treat? Because, you know, you're essentially wearing your bullpen down every 5th day or 6th day or whatever it is. So I would like to see these guys be real starting pitchers.
Justin Yamas hurting me here. Do you guys remember Kendrick Nunn? That's worst case scenario about bone bruise. I feel like I do remember how frustrated I was because he got that injury preseason, and then it was always like, "Where's Kendrick Nunn? Oh, he's not going to play at all this season." Fun time.
Yeah. Talking about the Lakers, in case you don't know who Kendrick Nunn is.
All right, so real quick, so third base options. I feel like the Dodgers are going to have to find a third baseman. I mean, if Muncy's out at least 6 weeks, that's going to probably take us into mid-August. I guess the question is, so do you find a filler third baseman? And do you go the route like a Kevin Biggio and hope that it pans out a little better than that?
Gross.
Or do they be aggressive here and go for a starting third baseman that may potentially eat into Muncy's playing time when he comes back?
I don't know if there's a starting caliber third baseman out there that you would want over a healthy Max Muncy. That's what I'm going to say. I don't see who that would be unless you have someone in mind. So to me, it's like you know, I would like to get someone better than a Kevin Biggio, because if you're just going to go get Kevin Biggio, you might as well let Miguel Rojas and Kike Hernandez battle it out over there. Like, I don't see the point in that, but they should get someone that is a starting caliber third baseman, but that you could easily like DFA or bench or whatever once Muncy comes back.
Here's what I'm going to do. And it's going to be a hot take, but you're going to have to give this team something of substance because they're kind of competing right now. But you got to call the St. Louis Cardinals, and you've got to get this deal for Nolan Arenado done. Now, the caveat is I need the Cardinals to eat at least half of this contract to make it worth the trade, because I don't think the Dodgers should pay the full salary. But if they get half a 50-cent coin on the dollar, then this is totally worth it to me. You can have Nolan Arenado ride the bench or be a platoon guy moving forward when Muncy or if Muncy comes back. And I think that's perfectly acceptable. But give the Cardinals a guy like Dustin May and some expendable guys down in the system. Throw in a Ryan Ward, who's never going to play up here. Maybe throw in another starting pitcher, Nick Frasso. Maybe he needs a change of scenery. Maybe give them Bobby Miller. Give them some guys that just don't seem to have a future here with the Dodgers and bring over Nolan Arenado. I know he's struggling this season. I know his numbers have really declined. His OPS is down to 700 basically, but you know you get an elite defender, which I think is huge for the Dodgers to just shore up that infield defensively. And you got a guy that potentially with a loaded lineup finds a spark, reunites his career, and provides production in the lower third of the Dodgers batting order. So that's where I stand.
I might regret making this statement if we get Nolan Arenado and he's really good, because I remember when we were talking about Michael Kopech and I said absolutely not, with the way he had been pitching for the White Sox, and then he became a hero for the Dodgers down the stretch and in the postseason. So I may have to eat my words on this, but the way I look at it right now is that Nolan Arenado feels like a little bit of a panic move. You're not really getting a guy at the top of his game right now. Now, I get defensively, there's no comparison, and he is an elite defensive third baseman, and if he gets into the Hall of Fame, it's going to be because of that. So I fully understand that. But if you're going to give up a lot to get Nolan Arenado, and I think that the Cardinals, who are in contention in the NL Central, they're going to drive a high price for someone like that. I don't know that that's worth it at his age, stage of his career. Looks like he's a little on the decline offensively. I don't know if that's the move that the Dodgers are going to make. It might just be a little bit too steep, and it kind of feels panicky in a way, especially if you think Max Muncy's coming back.
That's the big if is I need to just have a little bit more information on Max Muncy. But based off him being out at least 6 weeks, he might not be back till September, by the way things are going to go. I truly believe in Arenado, and my last thoughts here will be, before we close it out, I'd rather go down with the Nolan Arenado ship and at least trying than going for a guy like Alex Bregman. I just cannot stand the fact of trying to get a guy like Bregman, who is just so arrogant, so cocky, the way that he kind of just besmudged the whole cheating allegations that turned out to be true. And with the Dodgers playing the Astros this week, it just brings back old feelings. And you'd have to probably trade a lot more assets to even bring in Bregman than Nolan Arenado at this point. And like it would be hard for me to root for a guy like Bregman. So it's just easier to go with Arenado.
Roy Estrada brought up a nice idea, which would be Eugenio Suarez from the D-backs. The only thing there is, like, I don't see the Diamondbacks wanting to give us a third baseman like that, even though that they're not really, they're kind of slipping in the standings.
I don't think Arizona's going to help us.
No.
Yeah, but he'd be an awesome candidate. Like
yeah. I mean, come on, the guy has got serious power, and he's I haven't looked at the numbers, but from what I remember, I mean, he's a pretty decent third baseman, fielding wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's got 26 home runs this season. All right, Jake, my last question for you is, who was the last player to record 3,000 strikeouts before Kershaw?
The last player to do it, I think it was it Scherzer?
It was Scherzer. But I'll be quite frank, I don't even remember it happening with the Dodgers. I feel like all the good moments with Max Scherzer kind of got blacked out for me after the NLCS debacle. So I was looking at the highlight tapes, and Dodger Stadium gave him a huge ovation and really celebrated Scherzer achieving that milestone. But
yeah, I actually remember that. I wasn't there, but I remember watching it.
I don't even remember talking about it on this show, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, because we must have talked about it. Come on.
All right, baseball pet peeves, or save it for next time?
Let's save it for next time. We're running out.
Appreciate everyone tuning in this week to the Incline Dodgers podcast. We are presented by TickPick and Fansided. If you're listening on the audio feed, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button. Leave us a comment. Let us know your thoughts on Max Muncy. And we got a super chat, so I think we really need to acknowledge the listener now. Tofkowski, thank you so much for the super chat. Question is, do you guys think Roki Sasaki, Blake Snell, and Tyler Glasnow will be reliable for us in October?
I think the question should be rephrased to available. Will they be available in October is my question. But in terms of reliability, I think Snell would be the guy that I would pick out of those three. I haven't seen enough from Sasaki to trust him. And Glasnow, I don't even know if he's going to be available.
I will say I'm buying Blake Snell coming back. I think they've been strategically holding him out so that he's just a second half pitcher. Same thing for Tyler Glasnow. He's going to probably make just one more rehab start, and then he'll be back pitching for the Dodgers. Blake Snell will probably be a late July return, hopefully, or maybe early August, and that's enough for me. Those two is enough. If you pair that with Roki Sasaki, I think that's enough to get it done. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. If you pair that with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, that's enough to get it done. The reason I said Roki Sasaki is because I was having too many thoughts in my head. I was going to say, I think Roki Sasaki, he's just a lost cause for this season. I think you kind of have to mark it as a sunk cost. It just was not his year. There's still a lot of development and some injuries that need to be addressed. So I think you kind of have to just X out Sasaki for the rest of this year moving forward. And so Yamamoto, Snell, Ohtani is going to get stretched out. I think that's going to be a big number 4 or number 3 for us. So you got those 4 guys. You're chilling, maybe Kershaw in your back pocket. And I saw Seth Lugo being mentioned. I will say, as my way going out, Seth Lugo has emerged as my top trade target for starting pitchers.
I love it. I would love Lugod on this team. Finally, before we go, Muncy also said no structural damage to the knee. So good news.
All right, everyone, have a great 4th of July. We're out of here. Appreciate everyone.